In today's modern day, the thought of aliens is not a foreign topic. With the US government and other governments around the world releasing classified documents on something that they cannot explain in the sky like UFOs, the topic of aliens is becoming more and more important as the years pass by. With the wealth of technology that we have nowadays, there are still some alien encounters that cannot be explained and have just enough evidence to make them credible. And today we will be discussing one of the craziest alien encounter stories that does have some evidence behind it. And this is the story of Antonio Vias Boas, a Brazilian farmer.
Great stories.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that they are actually seeing UFOs that are extraterrestrial in nature?
Well, even the United States Navy doesn't say that outright. It actually hedges its bets. It says these are unidentified aerial phenomena or UFOs for any other. They're not actually saying extraterrestrial. They're saying, let's take a good look at this. And I think as a scientist, we have to acknowledge this, that it's time to take a closer look. There's enough good reports by good observers. One would argue that pilots are pretty decent observers. If they're saying something they can't explain, maybe it's time to take a closer look.
Now this story takes back in 1957 in the country of Brazil. Mr. Boas lived in a very rural part of the country where there was not a lot of lights or a lot of buildings around beside his farm. He was described by friends and family as a very trustworthy, hard-working man, so this story does come out and kind of surprise people as to how crazy it gets. Now the story starts off with him sleeping one night. He wakes up and sees a bright light outside of his window. The light is in the air and just far enough for him not to be able to notice exactly what it is. The light is, however, close enough to blind him, and he has to look away. Now the light disappears, and he decides to go back to sleep. He woke up later that night and saw the light had returned. He panicked and he didn't know what to do, so he decided to go wake up his brother, that way he could have somebody to believe him. When his brother arrived to his room and saw the light outside the window, he also panicked. They didn't know what to do, so they just stood there and watched the light before it disappeared a few hours later. While they did have this UFO on their mind, they kind of started to forget about it, and about a week later, they decided to start working at night in order to avoid the harsh heat of the day. It was during one of these nights when they noticed that the light returned, and this time they were outside. Boas and his brother decided to walk towards the light and see exactly what it is, so they did. The light began to avoid them, moving from one side of the field to the other. As they got closer and closer to the light began to dim until it finally disappeared. Now Boas doesn't know if this light flew away or if it just vanished, but he did know that it was gone, and him and his brother decided to go back inside and call it a night. It was the next night, however, when things got extremely weird. Boas was working alone on this night, and the light came back, but this time it was red, and it was incredibly faster. The light came out of nowhere and went directly to Boas and his brother. Now Boas panicked and he didn't know what to do, so he tried to run for the first cover he could see. Since his house was too far away, he decided to run to his tractor and get inside. Once inside the tractor, he turned it on and tried to make an exit, but the tractor seemed to have died. The engine did not work anymore and the lights went off. Boas believed that this was some kind of attempt by the UFO to stop his escape and they can get closer to him. While his fastest way of escape wasn't working, he decided to get off and start running, but right when he was about to start running, something grabbed his arm. It was some kind of small figure that he described to be in some kind of bodysuit. The bodysuit looked metallic, and there were some tubes leading from the body of the figure into its helmet. He believed that these were some kind of breathing devices. While the figure was able to grab him, however, he managed to outpower it, and he ran away. As he got farther, however, he was surrounded by 3 other beings wearing the exact same thing as the first one. Having nowhere to go, Boas was trapped, and he was sucked up by the UFO into its bottom capsule. Once inside the UFO, he saw the aliens that were around him on the ground, and they were walking around trying to communicate to each other about probably what to do with him. He said that the sounds the aliens made to each other were some kind of animalistic grunts, and he couldn't really replicate them when he was asked to. He said the sound was so foreign to him it was hard for him to imitate them. Now, once he was inside, they removed his clothes carefully. Now, he said that they were really careful and they tried not to hurt him or damage his clothing. Then, he was sprayed with some kind of liquid. Now, people believe this was some kind of disinfectant spray since the spread of diseases could be very possible in between different races. A cold and scared Boas sat in the corner of the UFO not knowing what to do as the aliens moved around and seemed to prepare the environment around him. One of the aliens came up to him with a small device and poked him in the chin, probably to take some blood. He panicked because he didn't know what was going on, but it was fast and it wasn't too painful. And then, a woman walked in. Now Boas described the woman to be human in features, but she did have a lot of features that were not human, but he said they were still very attractive. Boas started to realize what the aliens wanted, and they wanted him to mate. Before Boas could react or think about anything, however, a gas appeared from the top of the UFO onto him and the woman, and he believed it was some kind of aphrodisiac. Boas and the woman eventually had sex before he was given his clothes back and brought back to ground. Now Boas said before he was beamed back to the ground, he tried to take some object from the UFO as proof that he was actually taken. He said one of the aliens reacted extremely violently and snatched the item away before throwing him back into the ground. Now Boas didn't know what to do after the event, but he did get sick and nauseous a few days after it, and he got some kind of swelling and bruises on his body. He decided to go to his doctor and find out what happened, and this is when some of the evidence starts to appear. Boas seemed to have some kind of scrapes and cuts on his chin, and it did look like something was taken out like blood. It was actually his physician, however, that decided to ask him to go public with this because there was some evidence behind it. After going public, he was investigated further, but he did start to appear with some kind of warts on his skin and some kind of yellowing. Now people didn't know what this was, and they decided to test it out. And what they found out was that in fact the nausea and the dizziness, including with the warts, was actually radiation poisoning. Now a farmer from Brazil has no reason to have an excess amount of radiation, and this is great proof for his claim. Now while there are many skeptics of this story, there is a lot of evidence behind it, and you just can't deny it. While you don't have to necessarily believe it, there is a lot of things that say that this might have possibly happened. Either way, you do have to take it with a grain of salt, and you have to make your own conclusion. Anyways guys, this has been Sinister Stories, and thank you for watching. Now, I want to thank all of you that do support my videos and watch and drop likes. I really appreciate that, and you are really helping the channel grow. And I would also like to welcome all the new followers to the channel who have recently subscribed. I hope you all are enjoying the content, and I thank you all for your support as well. Until the next time guys, be safe out there, and keep an eye on the sky, because you never know who or what might be watching.